Okay. We're jumping ahead. We're still in amira liakum, but we're jumping ahead to Siman Sadik Sif Yud Daled. Siman Sadik Sif Yud Daled, where we're going to talk about more the actual stuff that we discussed for the last little bit. You'll see more of these practical examples. So Sif Yud Daled. Kol davar shayisrael aser la'asayse. Anything a yid can't do by themselves. Aser lemer la'akum la'asayse. You're not allowed to tell a guy to do it for you. The amira la'akum have a shus, because asking a guy to do it for you is a iser d'Rabbanan as well. Okay. So anything that you're not allowed to do yourself, you're not allowed to ask a guy to do for you because it's a shvus. A shvus means, like we mentioned, it's a midrabanan, iser midrabanan. Afilu lirmer is la'asayse aser. Even if you only hint to him to do it, it's also a problem, as we said before, because of the issue of v'daber dover. That bepoil. No, I'm sorry. Lirmer is could technically, well, it's usually because it's shlichus. Even if you tell him before Shabbos and he does it for you on Shabbos, it's also a problem because when he does it, he's doing it as your shliach. You're also not allowed to tell the guy not on Shabbos. I'm sorry, not allowed to tell him on Shabbos to do it after Shabbos because of the issue of v'daber davar. Meaning he's not your shliach, he's not doing anything on Shabbos, but on Shabbos itself, you're speaking in a way you shouldn't. And therefore, if you only hinted to him, so you're not actually saying things you're not supposed to, so then mutter, that's the Alter Rebbe answer. Then you could, because you're doing this in a way of a hint. And we explained when we learned this, there are two different ways of hints. There's the hint that's in a way of a command, and then there's a hint that's not in a way of a command. So it has to be in a hint that's not a command, like we'll see soon. However, over here, this is not because of because, like we said before, when he does it, he's doing it at a time that he's allowed to do it. So what's the problem with asking him on Shabbos to do it after? The problem over here is that it's the way he's speaking. He's not your shliach, it's not a shvus, but you're saying things you're not supposed to say on Shabbos. Therefore, and here we have, I guess you could say hatter number one we're introducing, or half, because we already said a hint. But then, even then, it's only the tzorech mitzvah mutter. If it's for tzorech mitzvah, so then there's leeway to say that you can ask him to do it for you in this way, meaning in a way of a hint, and for sure for after Shabbos also. Yeah.
So it says that even the person said that any law that you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to ask the good to do it, right?
Correct.
So, but then the same part says, I'm gonna feel it makes place for this also.
Yeah.
So he says, even if it's disaster. And then so the last part of the Alter says, that if you ask them to do something on Shabbos,
That's a hint. No, so there's two different cases. Yeah. There's two cases. The first one is you're hinting him to do it for you on Shabbos. And even then, as we said, there's two different types of hints. This would be, and that's why he says, I feel lirmuz leila. So you're giving him a hint to do it. So it's a hint that's medera tzivoi, so then it's a problem. But in the next case is you're hinting to him to do it for after Shabbos. So then your hint is not a problem because it's not speaking wrong. And when he does it is after Shabbos, so he's not your shliach. First of all, it's not the Alter Rebbe including it. These are editors more recently that put in the Alter Rebbe's psak. This sefer was written much after the Alter Rebbe. Oh, well, we'll get there. We're not done yet. We're step by step. Okay, Sif Tezvav. Even if the guy wants to do it on his own, you have to stop him from doing it if he's doing it for you. So if a guy wants to take off the little bit of soot that's at the tip of the candles, which used to stop the candle from lighting, as we'll know, it's coming up to Hanukkah. When you light your candle, if there's a little bit of soot at the top, then the flame is a little smaller. So what they would do in those days is you'd flick off the top and the flame could get bigger. So if you see him about to do that, which by the way is a mitzvah deraisa, so then you have to stop him from doing it because you're not allowed to allow him to do it. This would be what we call, on one hand, it is a toises hana, that is true, which means it's making it a little bit bigger. So it could be that in this case it would actually be mutter if you did it in a way of a remez. Yeah, if you did this in a way of a remez, it's possible that it would be mutter over here. Okay, but if you didn't do it in that way and he's doing it for you, then mitzat shulchus you might have to stop him. Okay, but if he's doing right, okay, Sifta Zayin. So that's number two. I guess you could say Tosis Hana in a way of a remez. We just added that in, and that would be okay. Sifta Zayin, David. Sifta Zayin. Imroya Adam Sheyuchol Lover. That they have to, if a person sees that is going to be a loss. He's gonna suffer a loss. Going, for example, let's say he has a barrel of wine, which is in a very precarious situation. Maybe it's going to break. It's in a shashanavim. Someone could steal it or whatever it is. You're allowed to call a goy to help with it. Even if he's going to end up fixing, let's say it's a kli that's getting weakened, so he's going to fix the kli, which you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, the tikkun maneh, but you know that he's going to do something. But in that case, you could do it because there's a hefsid, and therefore you're allowed to ask him to do it for you. Lavad, however, and this is what we said before, it has to be in a way of a hint. You can't give him a remez, a hint, which is a tzivoy, which is a command that he should do it. So what could you tell him if you're not telling him to do it for you? So what you could say is, call me whoever will correct this loss or this possible loss, won't lose out payment. In other words, you're essentially not asking him to do anything. You're just saying, if someone were to fix this, then they'll get compensated at some point, but you're not actually wording it in that way, and therefore it's okay. However, as he says over here, this is only when there's actual ahafsimiruba. Stamta, you're going to lose something that's not valuable, then you're not allowed to do this. So again, here you have, excuse me, it's a remez, you're hinting, and it's not b'derech tzivoy, and it's because it's a hefsimiruba, that's why you're allowed to ask him to do it. Sif Yud Zayin. What if it's not an actual problem on Shabbos to do? It's only a midrabanan. So let me rephrase that. It is a problem to do it on Shabbos. It's just not a problem midraisa. So then, let's say it's for a mitzvah. So like we said in the shul, if the AC has an issue. Or someone is ill, like we said for kids or old people or things like that, people that are sick. Then you don't even have to hint, you can actually ask them to do it. So it's a dirabanan, and it's for a mitzvah or for someone who's sick. Then you can ask them to do it for you. This is why you're allowed to send the guy on Shabbos to go bring beer or other things that you need for Shabbos, even if there's no Erev. I'll explain what that means in a second. But you're not supposed to you should not allow this unless it's in a strenuous situation, extreme situation. You don't have anything else to drink. If it's just for your pleasure, but simply, you're not allowed to ask him to do it. I'll explain what that means in a second. Similarly, to ask the guy to bring it from outside the tchum, you're not allowed to either, even b'diavad it would be asur. In other words, like this, that in those days, as you know, a lot of the water was dangerous water. They didn't always have drinking water. It's more of a modern thing. They would boil the water, whatever they would do. So imagine, person wakes, so part of how they would protect themselves if they would drink beer. So beer is basically fermented drinks. So right, so depending on how they made it, you can make it from all different things. Meat would be from fruits, and beer would be from grain. But the point is that it goes through a fermentation process, which has a certain cleansing idea. The alcohol will kill the germs. So therefore, in a certain way, drinking beer was safer than sometimes drinking water, unless they knew for sure. So here it's on Shabbos, and you don't have what to drink. So therefore, the suggestion is to have him bring beer, which is a safer drink, but that's because you need a drink. That's like an extreme situation. But stamazay to ask a guy to bring something for you, even though it's only a midrabanan, it's not like we said. It's only b'shas adchak that we prefer that we allow that to be done. Some would say it's not only a shas adchak, which means a very extreme situation. It can also be for a hefsid. Kegoyin, for example, let's say something's left out in the rain and you're afraid it's going to get ruined. So then again, you're allowed to ask a guy to bring it in because there's a hefsid. However, it can't just be a small hefsid, it has to be a big hefsid. And the Alter Rebbe adds, tzorech gadol means a big need. So let's say, for example, I don't know, your whole meal, you have guests coming and your whole meal is either, whatever the situation is, somewhere else, you need to be brought over, I don't know, something like that. It's a real tzorech. It's not a hefsid gadol necessarily, but it's a tzorech gadol. So then you would be able to ask them as well to do that for you, to do that. Okay, Sif Yud Ches. Be'ez hakor, when it's cold, k'shakor gadol, and here the Alter Rebbe adds they add from the Alter Rebbe when it's very cold. And as I explained to you, very cold meant like Sukkot in Russia, which there was literally snow outside. So you're talking about very cold. So then and how do we know that? Because there was a story where the Sukkah, as we mentioned, was covered with snow. There's the whole thing. So Svarim on Shabbos asking the guy where to get Okay, so it's very, very cold. Then you're allowed to, so mutter leimer la'akol lahasikas hatana, you're allowed to ask the guy to light your oven, which is basically heat, because mishum kol chaylim eitz latzina. Everyone is considered sick when it comes to cold. And again, we're talking about that cold. And the same thing for heat, as we mentioned, but also extreme heat, like Arizona heat in the summer, where people can literally have issues. So then again, most of our air conditioners are dirabanan anyway, so there's a lot more leeway that if it's a dirabanan and you need it for, let's just say, for a mitzvah or, for whatever it is, you might be able to get away with it either, especially if it's for kids. But even if there's no kids, if it's really hot, it could definitely be an issue of dehydration or things like that. So for dirabanans, fine. But let's say it's not like something that's mamish needed to heat the house. You shouldn't really do it. If you could wait till the end of the day, that's better. I'm sorry. Also, let's say you want to just prepare for later. So you tell him, even though it's later in the day and we'll survive, but we want you to heat it up so that by the time it heats up the house, in those days in Russia in the winter, Shabbos is shorter than here, even I think. So Shabbos could be over, let's just say, 4 o'clock. So if it's already after Chatzos and there's only 2-3 hours left, and everyone could survive, then don't ask him to turn it on now. Let's say the guy's here, but they're leaving. So don't ask him to turn it on now just because you want it for after Shabbos. Fine. Sif your test. You're not allowed to send goyim outside the tchum of Shabbos to bring relatives of someone who unfortunately passed away, or a saftan, someone that's going to do the hesped. So, which is part, I guess, the mitzvah of Levias Hameis, but you're not allowed to have them do that on Shabbos. This is an interesting one. If someone brings, it's a guy brings wheat to the yid b'choiva, that he owes the yid. Okay, so he owed the yid money. He's bringing the wheat to pay him back. The yid gives him his key to his court, to his storehouse, which I assume is in his property. And the guy goes and he counts out what he owes him and he puts it there. Mutter, he is allowed to do that. What do you mean? Why can you do that? Mishum. The reason is because the akum mlakas atzmahu oisik. The guy is doing for himself, meaning it doesn't belong to the yid. It only belongs to the yid once he counts it out, measures it, and then gives it to him. So while he's doing the whole process of delivering and counting and setting it up, it's really still his. He's doing it all for himself. You see, the yid is allowed to even stand there to make sure that he doesn't, lie or trick. But you're not allowed to talk about what he's doing. You have to be there. But let's say the guy brings his own wheat that he wants to pay you with, then it's different. No, I'm sorry. If the guy's bringing you your wheat, then you're not allowed to tell him that he should take it out from the wagons, because then he's doing it for you. It's yours. Even if he wants to do it on his own, still you have to stop him from doing it because ultimately it's yours and he's doing it for you. So this is an interesting thing. I actually saw somewhere that when the guy another reason also is because when the guy wants to pay you back. In other words, he wants to get rid of the debt. People like to be debt free. So it's not only is it his until he gives it to you, but it's for him because he wants to give it to you to make sure that he doesn't have any debt on him. Okay, Sif Chaf Aleph. Let's say the guy is making cheese, and he's making cheese from his own milk. Right? The yid is watching the milking and the cheese curdling, because he wants to be Chalav Yisrael or Gvinas Yisrael. So then he could buy it, or other people could buy it after Shabbos. But it's the guys. So that even though the guy has in mind that he wants to do this so that he could then sell it to Yidden, still, that is a mutter, it's permitted. Because the cheese is the guy's. He's doing it for himself. And therefore you could stand there. A mutter, and in other words, he's not doing it as your shliach. And the yid is even allowed to tell him that he could do it on Shabbos. Meaning, you're allowed to say, do your work, do whatever you want. Sure, now's a good time. Even though there's going to be a benefit that will apply to the yid, they'll be able to buy the cheese or whatever the story is, he could still do it because it's not his. The guy's doing his own thing, and he's not telling him what to do. He's just saying, do your work, take care of whatever you need, or something like that. Sivcha Beis, Akum Shekana Schredim Yisrael. Let's say the guy bought something from a yid who bought Shabbos Lakachta, and he comes on Shabbos to take it. So let's say it was on Facebook Marketplace, and the guy comes and he wants to take it on Shabbos. So then, if it's possible, and the Alter Rebbe, they ask from the Alter Rebbe that this guy is not a strong-armed, bully. So then, Yesh Lamana, you should stop him from doing it. and he should come back after Shabbos. The famous Machanayim story with the general who came to the Yid, he wanted to get his mashka, and he didn't let the business Shabbos, and the whole story. Let him take it in the end exactly. So fine, let's go further. I want to finish this. Sifchav Gimel, Mishi Yesh L'Yom Zikaron Yortzei b'Shabbos, and we spoke about this as well. If someone has a yortzeit on Shabbos, V'shachach lahadli ger ner shel yortzei, he forgot to light a yortzei candle, which for people that appreciate lighting candles for their yartzeits, it's a very bothersome thing. They really want to light that candle. It's a zeicher for the neshama. It's very important. So yachalem liakum ben hashmashois sheyadlik. You're allowed to tell the guy ben hashmashois to do it. Avalei b'Shabbos, but not on Shabbos itself. So in other words, if it's something that you need, like we said before, there are ways how to do it. Here, what we're saying is, it's not like a need for Shabbos. It's just a candle for the yahrzeit. So in that case, you can ask them to do ben hashmashois. We'll see a similar halacha when it comes to if a woman forgot to light Shabbos candles. There might be something that you could do as well to have the guy do it during Ben Hashmashis to help her. Otherwise, she has to light an extra one her whole life, etc. So, but that we'll leave when we get up to there. Okay, this is it for amira.